Swordsman has recently made his live-action debut in the Disney Plus Hawkeye series, but what do we know about him already based on the comics? It's time to find out as we count down the top 10 swordsman facts you need to know. Number 10. Jack. In case you haven't been following along with the Disney Plus Hawkeye series, Jack Duquesne seems to be our MCU counterpart when it comes to swordsmen. Jack was the fiancé of Eleanor Bishop, Kate Bishop's mother. When Kate was just a young girl, her father, Derek Bishop, died during the Battle of New York when the Chitauri army, led by Loki, god of mischief, attempted to invade and overtake the city, the country, and, well, the world. Eleanor falls in love with Jack and keeps their engagement a secret from Kate, who finds out via Jack's relative instead of from her own mother. Jack in the series initially seemed to be a villain and potential antagonist, but with each passing episode seemed more and more like a pawn or possibly a fall guy who, didn't necessarily have bad intentions but may have been misguided in life. Like his comic book counterpart, Jack is also a gifted swordsman, better even than he wants to let on during a sparring match with Kate. His true alignment and allegiances were revealed in the final episode, giving us a better sense of what his character's really like in the MCU. Jack Duquesne in the Hawkeye series is played by Tony Dalton. Number 9. Trained Clint Barton. Swordsman was one of the key mentors for Clint in his early years. The two met at a traveling carnival and Clint became a fan of swordsmen. Eventually, he also was trained by Duquesne in the use of blades and swords, and by Trickshot, who also was a performer at the carnival and trained Clint in archery. Clint even became Swordsman's partner, aiding him and performing alongside him in his own act. However, just because Swordsman helped to train Clint didn't mean that they would always see eye to eye. It turned out that Swordsman wasn't quite the perfect role model in the end. Surprise, surprise? I think not. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, and if you want to learn more about some of these characters that happen to be popping up in the MCU, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Villain turned Avenger. Like Clint Barton and Natasha Romanoff, Swordsman also started out as a criminal. Clint learned during his time working with Swordsman in the carnival that he was a thief, and even tried to report him to the authorities. Unfortunately, Swordsman got away, but would turn up again years later. Initially, he'd be an adversary of the Avengers after offering his services and being denied. Swordsman was not happy with that and decided the best course of action would be to attack the Avengers, namely Captain America. Later on, however, he'd be redeemed and even end up joining the team, though he'd constantly questioned whether or not he was actually worthy of this membership. Swordsman has always been painted as a complex character, a character who has moved through many different alignments depending on what was going on for him in his life. His complexity is also a big part of what makes him so interesting. Number 7. Mandarin's double agent. When Swordsman first ended up joining the Avengers, this was because Mandarin had willed it and brought about getting him a spot. Mandarin thought Swordsman could be useful as his double agent, and in issue number 20 of the Avengers, after that first instigation with the superhero team, spirited him away, gave him some upgrades, and then, posing as Iron Man, managed to get him a spot on the team. Although the Avengers were suspicious of this so-called message from Iron Man at the start, Swordsman would become so fond of his teammates that when he was tasked with luring them into a trap, he actually tried hard instead to destroy the trap that had been laid. Unfortunately, instead it kinda looked like he was setting up the bomb to destroy them instead of, taking it apart. This misunderstanding resulted in Swordsman basically just running away and eventually becoming a reluctant criminal once more, dreaming of one day returning to the team and becoming a hero again. Number 6. Makulan Sword. I think I'm saying that right. McLuhan? It's an alien name. I don't know if it's ever been said out loud. I read it as McLuhan. When he was outfitted to be Mandarin's double agent, one of the things that Swordsman was given was a special sword. This sword was augmented using McLuhan technology and allowed him to fire an energy blast using different types of forces, depending on the scenario. He could fire a concussive energy blast, a fire blast, knockout gas blast, electrical blast, or a disintegrating sorta laser beam with this sword. In the comics, the McLuhan were also the ones connected to the Mandarin's 10 rings, which are depicted initially as being actual jewelry-based finger rings, by the way. The Makulan race are essentially space dragons. They look similar to Lockheed, who may be from another alien space dragon race, or might be from the same one. I don't think it's ever fully confirmed what his alien race is called in the comics. The only thing I know is the Flock. The Flock, though, is like their hive mind thing. I don't think that's the name of the race. Either way, if this sword appears in the MCU with the same tech, this could connect back to Shang-Chi and the 10 Rings, if they're kept McLuhan in origin, or possibly connect to a future Lockheed if he is considered McLuhan in the MCU, and if he shows up with the mutants whenever they arrive. Hopefully soon. Number 5. Lethal Legion. While Swordsman would often find himself unhappy in his criminal profession, this did not stop him from joining up with other villain groups, even to face a team that he admired, like the Avengers. In issue 79 of the Avengers, we see him team up with the Lethal Legion. This team was brought together by the Grim Reaper and also featured members M'Baku, Eric Jostin, known at the time as Power Man, and the Living Laser. The Lethal Legion even had miniatures of the Avengers made to help in their scheming and plotting. You know you're like a serious villain team when you're like, we're gonna have minis made so we can like figure out which Avenger we're taking out next. Oh, it's so awesome. They ended up kidnapping Black Panther and his girlfriend at the time, Monica Lynn, but would eventually be defeated when Grim Reaper realized that the Avenger, Vision, had his brother's brain pattern. This revelation prompted him to put an end to Vision's torment, freeing him and thereby foiling his own villainous plot. Number 4. Married Mantis. Swordsman would end up back on the Avengers team as a hero once more, and later during a double wedding, Swordsman ended up married to Mantis. They shared their nuptials with a very famous comic book couple, Vision and Scarlet Witch. No joke. While a somewhat odd pair and having a somewhat odd relationship, considering at this point Swordsman was dead, the two loved one another and even had a child together. In fact, after they're married, they just like blast off his energy into the cosmos to like go mate. It's kinda weird, but hey, you know, the swordsman that Mantis would marry was actually a Katati version of him, which was resurrected as a plant person, but still would have the memories, mind, and form of Jacques Duquesne. Tragically, Mantis had not actually realized her true feelings for Swordsman until he was dying, so the two weren't able to wed when he was alive, as she wasn't sure that she really loved him. It was only when faced with the loss of Swordsman that she realized her true feelings. Fortunately, Plant Swordsman entered the scene, ready to love her right back. Yay! Number 3. He died. So yes, you heard that right, Swordsman actually dies, and only after he is resurrected is married to Mantis. Resurrected in a way. He would actually get later, like, resurrected himself. This is technically another version of him, the plant one, but it's also kind of a resurrection. Comics are confusing. His death occurs in Giant Size Avengers issue number 2, and it's pretty brutal. Swordsman died in a fight against Kang, protecting Mantis. He ends up being electrocuted via his sword, which is why you don't bring a sword to a Kang fight, by the way, I guess. He dies in Mantis' arms, and his last words are pretty sad. Mantis, in tears, asks Swordsman not to go, saying that she must have time to atone for her bad behavior, realizing that she loves Swordsman, but that she's kinda misused him. Jacques' response is, "We are only what we are, darling. I tried to be worthy of you, of the Avengers, but like Kang, I was doomed from the beginning. I'm a failure. I'm just one of those people who doesn't count." So sad that he just dies. I don't count. Now I'm dead. Jeez. Number 2. The Celestial Messiah. When Katati Swordsman came on the scene, he was brought back to father the Celestial Messiah with Mantis, who was considered to basically be the Celestial Madonna. That's the whole point of why Kang was there and why he wanted Mantis, by the way. He wanted to be with Mantis because she was the Celestial Madonna. Together they created Koi, who would actually grow up to be a key player and major villain during the Empire event. Here, Sequoia, who then becomes known as Koi, or Qua if you want, that's how you'd say it in French, motivated in part by Katati Swordsman, who is basically his dad, aimed to destroy all animal life on Earth as payback for injustices suffered by the Katati people. His plan was to get revenge on not just Earth, but all those who had or, would have spurned the Katati in the cosmos. Fortunately, Sequoia and the Katati would end up defeated, but yeah, he's technically a son of Swordsman and Mantis, or at least a son of Katati Swordsman and Mantis. Number 1. The Other Swordsman. While Jacques Duquesne is probably the most recognizable person to have held this mantle, he actually wasn't the only one. After Swordsman's death, there was another character who decided to step into the role, this time from a villainous side. Although he did end up becoming a more well-intentioned character when he was on a Thunderbolts team led by Hawkeye, before that he was on a Thunderbolts team led by Baron Zemo. This version of Swordsman was Baron von Strucker's son, Andreas. Andreas's power allows him to emit energy blasts, but only while in physical contact with his sister Andrea. Zemo had Andreas trained up to become the new swordsman and had Andrea killed, whom Andreas had also had a romantic relationship with, by the way, even though yes, they are brother and sister. To ensure Andreas's energy powers still worked, however, her skin was tanned and used as leather for the hilt of Andreas's sword. That's not creepy at all. Both twins are alive and well again now in the comics, as Andrea was later resurrected as a clone. Recently, they popped up to try and make a deal with the X-Corp in the X-Corp series during the Hellfire Gala. Currently, they're both known as the Black Knight. So no more swordsmen for Andreas. What are your favorite swordsman facts? Are there other characters in the Hawkeye Disney Plus series that you'd like to learn more about? What is your favorite alignment for Duquesne? Do you like him best as a villain, hero, or an anti-hero? Let us know in the comments below. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, reminding you as always to stay nerdy, YouTube.